Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Have you or someone you love been a victim of a crime that's still unsolved? Crime Curious has teamed up with one of the top private investigation services in the Indiana and surrounding area. If you have listened to us long enough, you know that we do not seek out services or products that are meaningless to us or hold no real value. So you can trust us when we say that Corbett Investigations comes with decades of experience you won't find anyplace else. Corbett Investigations is run by a former homicide commander of one of the country's most successful homicide units, has put over 400 people in prison for homicide, handled over 1,100 death investigations, and solved 33 cold case murders. To be real with you, Mr. Corbett had a really difficult time telling us what we should highlight in this segment because he does not like to sound like he's bragging. Solving crimes has been his life's passion, and he has never done it for the accolades or recognition. He has a whole team behind his services that help him be so successful, as they specialize in things like blood stain analysis, ballistics, crime scene reconstruction, and forensic pathology, just to name a few. When you contact Corbett Investigations, you talk directly with Tim Corbett. He is hands-on with every case and can travel anywhere that's needed to get the job done. Corbett Investigations prides itself on honesty, truth, feet to the ground, real investigation work, and the strength to stand up to whatever is in the way of solving the crime. Corbett Investigations specializes in complex homicide cases, sex offenses, and criminal investigations that are old and new. Tim and his team have a reputation for finding witnesses and information that others could not. Although we hope none of our listeners ever need private investigation services, if you do, we recommend contacting Corbett Investigations and mention this segment on Crime Curious for a free consultation. Contact Tim Corbett today at 574-229-8115. You can also check them out on Facebook at Corbett Investigative Services, Inc., or their email, tim@tcorbett.org. That's tim@tcorbett.org. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
We're going to shake our positive gree. There we go. Petting our mice. We have so many crystals. Thanks to all you weirdos for all the things you've sent us. It's fun when we start episodes.
Their weird minds and brains keep us happy.
They do. And if you are starting here for the first time,
Go back.
please go back one episode, because this episode will make zero sense to you and you will have missed such a drama. It's like reads like a soap opera, really.
Oh, and maybe I'll try not to comment so much this time. I talked a lot last time because I was appalled.
Oh, don't worry. You'll still be appalled.
Okay.
But, there's a resolution of sorts. I don't know. Anyway, go back one episode because this is a two-parter and you're in the middle of this, or we're starting the second part here. So I left you last week when Michael and Christine Barnett had legally changed their disabled adopted daughter Natalia Grace's age from 10 to 22. This was done after CPS was called on the family for leaving Natalia locked outside all night and the neighbors heard her cries. Michael Barnett claims Natalia was trying to kill them and their 3 biological sons. After they legally get her age changed to 22, they can no longer have CPS called on them, and they are no longer obligated to even have her live with them.
What about Adult Protective Services?
They come into play, don't worry. When she was released from the psychiatric ward that they had her committed to or paid for a bed for her to be at after the farm incident, remember that we talked about last episode, they did not want her living with them, claiming fear for their entire family's life. In the 2019 interview conducted with Michael Barnett, he goes on and on about how Christine did not want Natalia to be homeless, so they picked the richest neighborhood in Westfield, Indiana, and they got her a single-floor apartment and even gave her stuff from their own home. How nice of them.
They put a child in an apartment.
They did. They put a disabled child in an apartment.
Was there a caregiver or an aide?
Nope. She was alone. So let's talk about some neighbor interviews, because now Natalia has neighbors. It's not the Barnetts that have neighbors. It's Natalia, because they move her into a first floor apartment to be by herself.
Okay.
The first one that is interviewed is Sue McCullum. She claims that she does think that Natalia is 22, because that's what Natalia told her.
Because Natalia was told that she was 22.
For sure, because her age has legally been changed. She's 10. Her brain is 10. She's being told to tell people she's 22. Do you understand how easy it is to manipulate children? If you don't, go grab one and tell them the sky's purple, right?
Well, now you have a signed court order and you can say, well, we went to court and they said you were 22, sweetie.
Yep.
So you're 22.
Sue,
have a beer.
Right. Sue talks about how her body odor was pretty profound, because Natalia is disabled and she is unable to care for herself. Okay, plus she's 10. Many 10-year-olds would
smell like onions.
Yes, would have body odor if it wasn't for their parents wrestling them into the bath or shower every night. Sue said, whatever, that mom dropped groceries. I didn't mean to say claims, because I do believe Sue.
Yeah.
She was a believable interview. She really doesn't have a reason to lie. She was basically just telling her story from what she saw as Natalia's neighbor. She said that she saw Mom Christine drop groceries at her doorstep. Sue helped her carry them in while Christine watched from her Cadillac. Sue took her groceries a couple of times. She knows that when she took Natalia to the grocery store to buy groceries, Natalia was on food stamps. And this bothered Sue, because she's like, here you are, her mother, you're driving a Cadillac, dad comes in his Lambo, she's disabled, you don't even take groceries inside to her house, you leave them on the doorstep, and she has to take them in herself, and she's on food assistance?
Does she even know how to cook?
No, she is 10.
I know.
Right, no.
My 10-year-old can cook some stuff, but my 10-year-old is also tall, can reach a stove, can shower and bathe herself and take care of her ADLs.
Yeah. No, she's 3 feet tall.
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's another neighbor, Mr. and Mrs. Miles. They said they don't think that she was a child either. Again, she's telling people that she's an adult. Okay. They don't really know. These are not experts.
Hi, I'm Natalia. I'm 22 years old and this is my first apartment.
Yeah. And they're not experts in dwarfism. Okay, it's real hard to determine her age when she has a rare condition. They talk about her dirty clothing. They wondered how it was possible that she could care for herself, especially because her body odor. They wondered, why doesn't anybody help her? They never saw her mom or siblings. They only saw the adopted dad, Michael, come over once in a great while for short periods driving a sports car. And that's why they noticed him, because he's zipping around in his sports car, and they're wondering, why is it that she's not getting better care? Why doesn't she have a home health nurse? Why doesn't she have someone helping her? Then there was a man named Andrew Rice. He said that Natalia didn't seem like she was a child, but he wasn't sure. He asked her, again, these are not experts, and Natalia told him at that time that she was 26. This was right after she had moved in, okay? Again, to me, further pointing out how confused she is, because she is a child.
Yeah.
But he did notice that Natalia played with his son just like a child. He noticed her body odor. She's not taking care of herself. There's home video, as a matter of fact, that he gave to ID Discovery of Natalia playing with his kid. It is absolutely 2 children playing together. There's no doubt about it.
Great.
Some of the neighbors were growing even more concerned, so CPS is contacted again. The investigator from 2012 at the Barnett's home was Heather Wilson. She had investigated Natalia's safety at the age of 10 years old, 9, 10, respectively. And now, 1 year later, is called to investigate Natalia living in her own apartment as a 22-year-old. And she's not even sure what to think at this point in time. She wants to make sure that Natalia's needs are met. This is a huge red flag for CPS, as it would be, because of course they're looking at these legal documents like, I'm sorry, I just met you a year ago and you were a child and now you're living in your own apartment and you're allegedly 22.
Somebody declared you were 22.
Yes, and you cannot take care of yourself at all. So something that I should say too, Natalia was seeking connection. She was pestering her neighbors. She was waiting for Sue, like on her doorstep.
She's 10.
She's lonely. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
She's not in school.
No. She's just wandering around and she's wanting to talk to people. But because of her dirtiness, because of her body odor, remember I said this is an affluent neighborhood. She was a pest. And so that drew attention, and I found it interesting that they call CPS, even though they all said, well, I think she was an adult. She said she was.
They worried. They wondered.
Yep.
The longer you get to know her.
Yes. Yeah. Michael and Christine learn that Heather Wilson is back, and they are pissed.
Well, she's an adult. Fuck off.
Well, there's video footage because these people were constantly videoing conversations they had with Natalia, and it just ticks me off. But you can see Michael Barnett gaslighting Natalia, asking her leading questions, and often calling her a liar. He wanted to know exactly what Natalia and Heather talked about, what she told them, and what Heather's plan was. This is common, you guys. When I was a CPS worker and a parent found out that I had interviewed their child at school, which is legal without their permission, you do not need, this is the child protection law, you don't need their permission to interview them. They always grilled the kids. What'd you talk about? What'd you tell them? What questions did she ask? Did she say what she's going to do? This is all right in the video. You can hear him saying those things. The paranoia is obvious in his own recorded conversation with Natalia about why Heather was there again. He tells Natalia, quote, "You told Heather we only bring groceries once every couple of months, but we showed her all the receipts and our lawyers said that she isn't even supposed to be over here," end quote. First of all, you showing CPS your receipts means nothing because those receipts don't prove that you took that food over to Natalia's house.
Correct.
Anyway, then he is heard saying, quote, whatever Heather was trying when she was over here didn't work, end quote. Okay, as a former CPS worker, I can tell you that there is guilt right there in that statement. A CPS worker is not trying to create work for themselves, ever, I promise. They
love getting there and going, unsubstantiated, there's nothing here.
Nothing here, write my report, move on. They aren't trying to find anything. They have a duty to check and make sure that vulnerable populations are safe and being cared for. And the fact that Michael recorded himself accusing the worker, Heather, of trying to do something, to me shows that there are things for her to catch them doing that he's concerned about.
But it didn't work.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, people make statements like, quote, "I understand you're just doing your job and need to check up on the calls that you get," end quote. I've been told that by a lot of people who aren't doing a damn thing wrong.
Right. Like, I don't love this. I don't love this happened.
Sure.
I'm worried about who called. I don't love that somebody called. Happens a lot in divorce situations or custody things. But usually they say, well, do what you got to do.
For sure, because I have nothing to hide.
I don't like it, but do what you got to do. Because it can be traumatizing for any kid to talk to a stranger, especially when it's asking them personal questions.
Absolutely. Now, after CPS was called, they began buying more groceries and recording themselves dropping it off. When Michael would see things that he didn't buy in the fridge, he would question her where she got them. And they were actually from the neighbor, Sue, and she would explain that she was just being a nice neighbor. And Michael would say, well, you would never tell me the truth anyway. Like, just, he's asking her, she's giving the honest answer, and he's not believing it.
Natalia, Sue's not telling him she's bringing him stuff.
Natalia's saying,
my neighbor Sue.
My friend Sue brought it because she's just being a nice neighbor. And Michael's, no, you wouldn't tell me the truth anyway. You're telling them you're not getting any food. Like, no, legitimately. And Sue's just like, well, if I'd have extra, I'd bring it to her. He also recorded himself deleting all contacts in Natalia's flip phone so that she would not have a way to contact Heather Wilson or anyone for help again.
How in the hell is this girl supposed to protect herself living alone?
Well, he can't. She can't. And they don't want her to. He recorded himself deleting her contacts.
Why would you do that?
I don't.
Why would you record yourself doing something
I
so
never claimed that,
awful?
I never claimed that these people were intelligent.
They came into money.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There was also a handwritten letter by Natalia claiming that she made up all the things that she told Heather to make her parents look mean. Now,
really?
We call this recanting. It's incredibly common after a child
but do you
has
know,
had.
It's never the kid's idea when there's a recant.
Nope.
Weird.
Well, as I was saying, it is incredibly common. After a child has had what we call an unannounced natural interview, meaning a forensic interview prior to all parties involved knowing that there's an investigation, recantations always happen after all parties have become aware of the allegations, and the recanting is specific to the most damaging of information that was said during the natural interview. And this is what that's what that letter, which nothing is spelled correct in at all, you guys. It broke my heart because she is 10, 11 years old and she cannot spell basic words at this point in time. It was very hard for me to research this case because the people involved are so classically obvious in what they're doing that it was triggering and frustrating for me to sit through. Neighbors recalled in interviews that the parents were hardly ever there, and when someone was there, it was Michael and not Christine. Yet the letter that Natalia wrote claimed that they are there all the time and bring her groceries all the time. Very little, as I said, is spelled correctly, and you can see from the video that Michael insisted on taking that Natalia, like most children, does not try to answer his questioning, which, by the way, his questioning was accusatory and demeaning. She's clearly trying to answer in a way that's going to curb his anger. It's a survival technique. All humans possess this, but children are especially effective at reading tones and answering in a way that will keep them the safest. She was very lonely and, like I said, was, for lack of a better word, pestering her neighbors. I kept hearing as through the neighbors' interviews that they were creeped out by her. And I hate to say this, but I think some of it has to do with the fact that of her disability and the way that she moves. I think that people just being awful sometimes make assumptions about people with disabilities.
Oh, I don't disagree.
And so this kind of bothered me, but she had clear boundary issues simply because she was never taught them. She would enter people's homes if the door was not locked. She was hungry a lot, so she would come in and get food.
Well, she's a kid and she's surviving.
Yes. Well, and the neighbors, and remember, this is an affluent neighborhood. They would say things like, well, she's a little bit of a sly fox and she would con her way into your home. Well, okay, she's hungry and lonely. I mean, I think that just kind of bothered me too, where I'm like, or maybe she was hungry and lonely. Yeah. And you're interpreting it now that you've heard other sides of this story as her being a sly fox.
I bet they would completely change those descriptors, though, if they knew that.
The whole story?
Yeah.
I agree.
I really think that these are probably decent human beings
Absolutely.
who were trying. It was just a bad situation. She was the smelly person. She was different than everyone else.
Telling them that she's an adult.
Right.
Remember that, guys. These neighbors that are being interviewed were told by Natalia that she is an adult.
Yeah, my mom and dad said I'm 22.
Yeah. Right.
It's legit. That's what happened.
Right.
Judge Meg says I'm 22.
Now, she would also, or she did, I shouldn't say she would, she did. And this is a point, this part that happens next, this is a point where I'm like, I could see her being manipulated into doing this. But she called 911 on herself, saying that she was stalking one of her neighbors and wanted to hurt them, and she asked them to come and help her.
Was she lonely?
I wondered that too. Some of the neighbors said that in casual conversation, she would tell them that when they asked, like, why isn't your family taking care of you? She would say, because I tried to kill them. Like, but those are the things that she was being told.
They told her she tried to kill him.
Absolutely. Do you know how many times that I interviewed a child and would be told the most off the wall things and then come to find out
I'm a bad kid.
Yes.
I do bad things.
Mm-hmm. Come to find out that's what they had been told. They were. She's still formulating her worldview, for crying out loud, at this age. So when they're asking, why don't you live with your family? Well, because I tried to kill them. Whether that's true or not, right? So obviously it freaked the neighbors out a little bit. But
hey, there are specific instances where 10-year-olds have had thoughts where they've wanted to cause harm to their family. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Given what she's been through, it wouldn't even necessarily surprise me if she maybe was a little homicidal-y, killery, murdery.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our moments, guys. We just don't act on them.
She doesn't have boundaries. She's been through a lot of trauma. She hasn't been shown love and affection.
We have no idea, none, what her IQ is, any psychologicals, because she's never had any of this medical testing.
Well, like I said, we don't know her baseline. I mean, I don't know what kind of testing that they did on her in the psych unit.
Me too. That's what I'd like to see. Did they do a K-bit for the intelligence? Did they do a Macy? Did they do a CAFIS? Did they do anything?
Right. I
trauma assessment,
sure.
A quick ACEs.
But here's the thing. Even if they did, were any of her answers true or natural? There's that piece too. Like,
yeah, but think about in a full psych when you get to just so little things like the MMPI and some of those things, and when they do like lie scale and stuff.
Yeah.
How is if she truly had a full battery psych, she's gonna pass lie scale or fail it, and they're gonna say, "Ooh, she was being incredibly deceptive when it came to this particular line of questioning."
Well, listen, the psych ward discharged her and didn't recommend that her age be changed.
Right.
So, I mean, there's that too, right? That was the family that pursued that.
Gotcha.
At this point in time, she's 11 years old. The neighbors are saying, she wore a bra, she had breasts. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all at 11 years old.
I have a 10-year-old that needs one
so
significantly.
They don't think that, she could possibly be 11 years old. More showing how your lack they're not experts in child development at all, right? Again, also she has this rare form of dwarfism. Now, the apartment manager did say that she would come into her office daily to get candy like a child would. And Natalia actually told the apartment manager that she doesn't really know how old she really is. So
she did say
she did say that. Yep. The apartment manager said when she interacted with kids, she played like a kid. When she talked to adults, she acted more adult. That is not uncommon. That is survival as well in terms of trying to act more adult. The apartment manager got too many complaints about Natalia. One said she was playing with the kids too much and looked like she was being inappropriate by rolling around with the kids because she was, remember, they think she's an adult. So they were considering her an adult rolling around with kids.
Yep.
So they're looking at that like that's inappropriate, not knowing she's not really an adult and she's just playing. Okay. So the apartment manager would not continue the lease. So she gets
evicted.
She lives there for a year and they're not going to re-up the lease. So they evict her. And this time, and there are messages that we find out about in 2022 after the abuse neglect case is done. There are messages between Michael Barnett and Christine Barnett about this particular move. Oh. And in those messages, we see that Christine Barnett is telling Michael to find her another apartment in Lafayette, Indiana, because that is where the white trash live. And this way, nobody's going to pay attention to her. No one's going to notice her. Okay?
Yeah, let's not put her in a nice place.
Yep. And so in reality, they put her in a second floor apartment in Lafayette, Indiana, that is not at all, there's no elevator.
Not handicap accessible.
It is not handicap accessible at all. She can't reach the stove. She can't reach the sink. She can't reach anything.
Well, she can't leave this way.
Correct.
They can keep her trapped on the second floor and just deliver groceries.
Yep. Well, have her groceries delivered because they move to Canada, Megan.
What? Out of the country?
They move out of the country because they say it's because their gifted son, Jacob, got an opportunity to continue his education in Canada. And so, who's older, by the way, he's like 15 at this point in time. So they believe that it's more important to go with their gifted son to live in another country who could take care of himself because he's a genius. He's gifted.
But they think she's an adult.
But they leave their minor that they know is a minor, regardless of if they've had it legally changed, disabled adoptive daughter in a town rife with crime.
I think that is actually the crux of the whole thing is, do these two people, did they convince themselves and truly believe that she was an adult when she wasn't? Or did they know the whole time and just try to convince everybody else, which is just the scariest thing ever in terms of child neglect? We're going to get to that. But your opinion is clearly that they knew the whole time.
Yes, I absolutely think so. And they knew they needed to get her.
I'm undecided.
They needed to get her out of that county that they lived in because there had been so many police reports.
I believe all that. CPS
and protective services complaints made. They were well known. They are one of those families where when that intake comes in, you're like, it's the Barnetts again. Right. Someone's worried about Natalia again. Yep. Okay. So they take her to Lafayette, and the rest of the Barnetts move to Canada to support their gifted son Jacob's education. So if any of you choose to watch the ID Discovery documentary, I want you to notice some things from a developmental perspective on the videos of Natalia. You can see where she is clearly a child. And then you fast forward to interviews that are done with her in 2022 after the abuse neglect case. And at this point in time, she was born in 2003. So how old would that make her in 2022? An adult.
Yep.
It is obvious in those interviews that she's an adult by 2022. Mm-hmm. And it is even more obvious when you see her speak in 2022 how much of a child she was during this whole case between 2010 and 2014.
Now she's 20 years old and she's an actual adult talking.
Yeah. Yep. I'm not saying that there were not any lies that could have possibly been told by Natalia. Children lie all the time.
Clearly.
Okay? Adults lie. But what this case lacks is actual real experts in DNA analysis, which does come into play in 2003. But until then, while this case is playing out, people are seeing a little person with a rare disability and making their own assumptions because she is different and she is weird. Of course, she's weird. She's a child that was abandoned as a baby in a Ukrainian orphanage and then shuffled around during the most pivotal time in her cognitive and physical development. Of course, she's going to have trauma behaviors and issues. And the videos to me, as she's older in 2022, it's obvious. And it's obvious that she's worked through some of that trauma as well. Moving her to another county. I said country, my bad. Moving her to another county was the beginning of the end. This was not a good idea. It was not a good area. They wanted rid of her, but this wasn't the right place to take her. It's 2013. Natalia would have been 11. They move her to that second floor apartment with no elevator. Her legs and feet are significantly disabled. They move her here, Megan, to stop her from coming and going like she did in Westfield and bugging the neighbors. Yep. The steps that she had to maneuver were incredibly difficult for her and dangerous. But neighbors are going to still notice things. And they noticed that a little person was moved in next door with what they thought were the parents too, until they never saw the parents again. She starts knocking on neighbors' doors. They all thought she was a child until she told them that she thought she was 22, which they all thought was very strange. She had no food. She was wanting to call her parents to get money. She didn't know how to use a smartphone. She didn't know her parents' number. She was left with nothing. She asked for food often. Her electricity bill wasn't paid and it was shut off. She had no electricity. This was not a good neighborhood. It's full of high crime. And many of the residents actually conceal carry out of necessity. She, as I think I said this already earlier, she can't reach the stove, the sink, so they leave a vulnerable person alone with nothing.
Oh, I'm just...
At this point in time.
So sickened.
Mm-hmm. Forget that. Let's say she is an adult, Megan. It doesn't matter. They legally adopted her and they left a vulnerable person alone purposely putting obstacles in their way for survival. This is like attempted murder, for crying out loud.
She needs an aid. She needs somebody to come in and assist with personal care. She needs transportation. I mean, and somebody, oh my God, it's just how is this happening?
So this is 2013. And when this move happens, Christine and Michael start to fight. Christine is telling him to give the phone back, but to wipe the contacts so that she can't contact anyone back in Westfield. The electricity gets cut off. They fight about that too. There was an adult GED center that was 2 blocks from Natalia's apartment. And Michael Barnett actually brags about this. Like, they strategically picked this apartment so she could go get her GED. But she started going shortly after moving in. And, well, she goes missing. So this isn't good for Michael and Christine, because now they're getting calls from the GED center. And they know that this means the spotlight's about to be on them again. The GED center calls them and says, she hasn't been showing up. Do you know where she is? Then they call them back a couple of days later and say, not to worry. We found her. She was found with a woman named Cynthia Mans. Michael Barnett claims that Christine has to be in control of everything. This is post-divorce interviews, okay? They get divorced in 2015, I believe it is.
Okay.
So, in the 2022 interviews after the abuse neglect trial, he is very willing to talk about how controlling Christine is. And of course, he's going to be her victim, right? I mean, he was the savior before. Now he's going to be the victim. Classic.
Yeah, you get bucked off that white horse, Mr. Knight.
Yeah. So Michael Barnett claims that Christine has to be in control of everything. So they reach out to Cynthia and she tells them not to worry. Natalia moved in with her and everything is fine.
That's it?
Yep.
I like this lady.
Yep.
She's just like, your adult daughter is living with me.
Everything's fine. But Michael Barnett says they're concerned that Cynthia let her move in when they hadn't known her very long. Well, here's the thing.
Sorry, that was a snort of air. Just contempt. It was contemptuous air snort.
Here's the problem, Megan. When you have your child's legal age changed to 22 so that you can shuck your responsibility of caring for her, you no longer have control.
That's right.
So they're pissed when they learn that Natalia's $500 food stamp money was used by Natalia and the food is at Cynthia's house where she's now living. Then they're even more pissed when they learn that Cynthia has taken Natalia down to the Social Security office and Natalia signs over her monthly Social Security disability payments to Cynthia as her caregiver because Cynthia is. You guys might not like this, but I'm here to tell you that this actually was appropriate. Cynthia was providing care for Natalia. She is providing a roof over her head. She's providing food. Cynthia was helping her bathe. She had clean clothing. She also had people to help her with her disability needs. Social Security disability payments are meant to go to these things.
The only thing that she's missing is possibly the legal paperwork that we would call it makes her a payee.
Oh, they had that.
So this is all legal.
Yes.
She's her legal payee. Not everybody needs a guardian or a conservator because she isn't of diminished mental capacity. Mm-hmm. She has some physical disabilities and she's a child. But that's beside the point.
But they said that she was 22. Yeah. She had the mental capacity.
A payee is appropriate.
Yep. And they did that.
Now people abuse these things all the time, but I'm not hearing she's being taken care of better than she ever has been.
Yes. And so they just legally went and made Cynthia the payee. They went by, because Cynthia was the one providing the roof over her head, food for her, clothing, all of those things. Quite frankly, in my opinion, Michael wants to attempt to villainize Cynthia when that's really unfair, because he claims that they were using those payments to pay for the apartment.
Well, she wasn't living in it, so who cares?
So let it go.
She had no electricity.
But then he claimed that they did illegally sublet Natalia's apartment, which was in her name, but the apartment doesn't allow that, so an eviction did happen. The apartment was in Natalia's name. Yeah. So Natalia sublet it.
Yeah.
But the apartment complex didn't allow subletting.
Right, so she got formally evicted so that they could rent the place out again. Yeah, that's normal.
But when Michael Barnett is talking about it. He is trying to villainize what Natalia did here.
Where's Cynthia from? Is she from the same apartment complex?
No, she lived in town. She met her what, like maybe when she was walking to and from the GED center? I believe she knocked on her door or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Just makes me sad again.
There is, and of course the Barnetts went to their lawyer, and the lawyer's like, well, nothing you can do.
Why do you care?
Right. Well,
she's an adult.
They're about the subletting and all of, you know, all of these things. Like, so when you make your child an adult and abandon her, there's unforeseen consequences that you've legally given up the right to control. They didn't love that so much. So Natalia is living with the Manns from 2014, and there had been a lot of police involvement between 2014 and 2019 regarding Natalia's case. Okay. The Barnetts are furious with the Manns and their loss of control.
So Cynthia's married,
She has a significant other. Cynthia has other children. A man. All of them. Yep.
So there were multiple people in her home, and she's like, "What's one more?"
Yeah, like I said, there's a bunch of involvement. And in 2014, Michael leaves Christine and files for divorce. That was his recollection. Couldn't tell you. Christine's not been interviewed. I don't know what her actual recollection is, if she kicked him out or what.
From what I'm hearing from Michael's statements, she might have made the smarter choice in choosing to be quiet.
Well, right, exactly. He moved, back to Indiana. Doesn't go back to Natalia. He just moves back to Indiana. In 2016, the Manns petitioned the court for legal guardianship of Natalia, which starts more investigations into her age and record sharing. They dropped the guardianship when the court accepts that, there was an age change. Like legally, her age has been changed. So they're saying she's an adult. So no, you can't be her legal guardian.
Well, you can actually have a legal guardianship over an adult. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Well, but you have to be able to show some
It was
things.
the Manns that dropped it at that point in time.
Okay. But they didn't believe it. Clearly, they thought she was a child.
Yes. And they want to adopt her. So enter Detective Brandon Davenport.
Do we like Brandon?
We do.
Okay.
Detective Davenport is willing to do a real investigation into this family. July 22nd, 2019, Cynthia Manns is contacted by Detective Davenport and tells the story that she knows. She tells the detectives that when Natalia came into her care, that Natalia was scared to death of Christine. When Christine came into her home, when Natalia came into her home, she actually had to facilitate conversations between Natalia and Christine. And it was obvious that Christine was demanding, controlling person, and that Natalia was super scared of her. The detective puts together the whole case, as we have heard thus far, and knows that something's not right here. So in 2019, the Bennetts are actually charged with 2 counts of neglect.
The Barnetts?
What did I say?
The Bennetts.
Sorry. And you know what? I just read it wrong because I spelled it right in my notes. Yes, the Barnetts are charged with 2 counts of neglect. Originally it was 4, but then it was dropped to 2. And so that's what they end up going to trial for. Michael Barnett tells the police what a master manipulator Christine is. He says she will do whatever it takes so that she gets everything. He blames her for everything. He claims that she picked Lafayette, Indiana to abandon Natalia because it is where the white trash live. No one cares about white trash. No one's going to care about a disabled girl, and no one's going to notice her. He was asked in the 2019 interview with the detective how old he thought Natalia really was right then.
In what year?
On that day in 2019.
Okay.
And Michael responded in a recorded interview, if I had to put money on it, I'd say 20 to 22.
He knew.
He absolutely knew. That question that you asked earlier.
That's why. He knew.
2019, he believed her to be 2022, which means when they had her age changed.
He knew it was a lie. They perjured themselves.
Yep.
He abandoned and abused a child.
Yes.
How did this guy sleep at night, knowing that at some point there was an 11-year-old girl in an apartment by herself that couldn't take care of herself? I picture taking my beautiful little 10-year-old right now, who actually probably could survive for quite some time, and just leaving one day. House is yours. Good luck.
Yep. By his logic, okay, if he In 2013, when they had her age legally changed to 22, and he knew in his heart it wasn't right, he knew then at that point, by his logic, she would have been 16. That's still a minor. And he's there on record saying it in a recorded interview to the detective, and they play it on the ID discovery. Okay. So that's how charges come about. He turns himself in and he bonds himself out. Christina does the next day as well. There's a lot of media attention. She's a published author, yada, yada. They have a gifted son, yada, yada. They are upper middle class.
She's got
yada,
an
yada.
ex-husband that won't shut his fucking mouth.
Right.
And now she's in trouble.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about the abuse allegations, because Natalia gets to speak. She gets to have her side of the story. So let's hear it.
Yep.
Natalia accused Christine Bennett of pepper spraying her on multiple occasions as a fear tactic. Natalia said, quote, "She literally made me sit there for like 10 minutes until I could finally go wash it out. And even after washing it out, it still hurt, and she didn't care. I believe this happened because if you don't know, when you have been peppered sprayed, you should not go open your pores in the shower.
Right.
It makes it hurt worse."
Yes.
So that statement, when she said, until I could finally go wash it out, and even then it still hurt. Yep, you've been pepper sprayed before. Natalia accused Christine of making her force a tampon in, even though she didn't have a period. Natalia said that Christine tried to convince her that she had started menstruating when she was 7. Natalia told Christine she was not able to insert the tampon because it hurt, but there was blood on it when it was removed, which Christine used to prove that she was menstruating.
No, she just basically injured herself.
For sure. Natalia accused Christine of regular physical abuse. Natalia stated, "She threatened me into telling people lies." When asked why she told others that she was 22, when Natalia would say that her true age was younger than Christine believed, Natalia said she would start hitting me with a belt. So just wherever she could. I remember trying to move, but she kept telling me to stop moving, and then she would just hit me harder. So what Natalia is saying is she conditioned me into telling people I was 22, and if I said anything younger, I was beaten.
Right. She didn't want to deal with the consequences, so she just accepted somebody else's truth.
Yep. Natalia claimed...
Somebody else lie.
I know what you meant. So, yeah. Natalia claimed that Christine once made her spray disinfectant into Christine's coffee mug so that she could record it on her phone. Natalia said, quote, "As I was wiping the table off, Christine came back in and was like, 'What did you spray in my coffee?' And I was like, 'Nothing.' She poured the coffee out, refilled it, and went and got her camera and made me do it." End quote.
Just so she could record it?
Mm-hmm.
This is psychotic.
Mm-hmm. Natalia claimed that Christine attempted to set her up with an older man when she was 7 years old. Christine called Natalia into the room where she cut her hair and applied makeup because she wanted her to look more adult.
Was she sex trafficking this child?
You know that there is a perversion of people who have a fantasy about having sexual...
somebody perhaps with her diagnosis specifically, but I want to know if this mom was trafficking her child.
These are allegations that are been made against her.
But she's never been charged.
She was charged with neglect.
Okay.
So they were actually charged with neglect of a dependent. That was my elbow hitting the microphone stand.
Okay,
sorry about that. Didn't feel great.
I just keep, I'm not comfortable. I keep moving, crossing, uncrossing. It's this case. And then I thought perhaps I had kicked something inadvertently.
Nope. No, it was just me being uncomfortable.
Okay.
So the Barnetts, were charged with neglect of a dependent. Notice I said dependent and not a child, because remember, legally, she is aged to have already been an adult, so they can't bring the charges of child neglect. So they are charging based on her disability and not her age.
Okay.
The prosecutors used the neglect case against the Barnetts. Through the neglect case against the Barnetts, were able to locate Natalia's birth mother in Ukraine.
No.
Mm-hmm. DNA testing confirmed that Anna Volgandamarovna,
I saw this on her profile.
Yeah, Gava is Natalia's biological mother. If Natalia's court-assigned birth date of 1989 was correct, Anna would have been 10 years old when she gave birth to Natalia.
Okay.
Prosecutors also obtained hospital records from the Ukraine that supported Natalia's original birth date of September 4th, 2003. This is very important because prosecutors were not able to present evidence of Natalia being a minor child living in her apartment during the neglect case, because the neglect case was tried based on Natalia's disability, not her age. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be something in the future, though. What ends up happening is that Michael Barnett goes to trial first and is found not guilty because much of the evidence of his guilt could not be presented. As I have said a lot through this, much of the issues are actually Christine, and Michael simply went along with everything and everyone.
He was narrating his story as the
Sure.
Canterbury Knight.
But even a lot of the allegations from Natalia were about Christine as well. In the 2022 interview, after he was found not guilty, he completely admits that Natalia's mind was manipulated by Christine, and that he denies his own accountability by saying that he was also manipulated by her. So after Michael's found not guilty, the charges against Christine are dropped, and she goes to social media to make this as an example of how innocent she is. But what do we often say time and time again? Not being held legally responsible for something does not mean innocence.
Being found not guilty does not mean innocent.
Well, she wasn't even charged. Michael was found not guilty. The charges against Christine were dropped.
Is she going to say enough that it makes it chargeable?
The prosecutors had to go, at the time when they brought the case against them, they had to go with the fact that her legal birthday wasn't showing that she was a minor at the time that she was living in those apartment complexes alone. Okay. It was showing.
I am listing off in my head the possible crimes I might try to charge them with.
I knew you would.
Obstruction of justice is right at the top. Nice common law. You can kind of fill in the to wit however you want. This is gross.
Mm-hmm. Natalia was legally adopted by the Manns in 2023, just last year. In August 2023, there was a DNA consult that indicated that Natalia's biological age was close to 22 years old, meaning that her birthday of 2003 would have been more accurate.
Yeah, she's exactly the same age as my second child, who just turned 21 in May. So Natalia's going to be based off of her birth certificate, 21 to September. So it would make sense that she is around 22 years of age pursuant to the DNA analysis.
Yep, which was confirmed August 2023.
Okay.
After all of the trials, right? So remember, the trials were based on her disability, not on her age.
I know.
Which means, maybe something could. Now that DNA analysis has confirmed she was a minor living abandoned alone in an apartment.
Here's what I'm concerned about. There are still minors in their home, right?
Well, no, their youngest was the same age as Natalia.
Yep, fair.
Yeah.
Because that's neglectful and abuse of other children in the home too. Even if they treated those other kids in the home as amazingly as possible, we still consider that evidence of how one child is treated, will be used in court as evidence of how all children could be treated for purposes of anticipatory neglect or abuse.
Well, absolutely. Plus, when you're making an example out of one child,
you're harming the other.
Yes.
Look at the trauma her children are still espousing. And they still believe these things to be true and that they were potentially going to be harmed by this young lady.
Absolutely. And one can't even drink drinks unless he's watched it the whole entire time.
Because his mom set up a dramatic reenactment of having something sprayed in her coffee. Someone should show him this video. Look what your mother did to you.
And I don't know that he would believe. I think he very much believes his reality of what he experienced. And if Natalia's mind can be manipulated, and Michael saying his mind was manipulated by Christine, So were these other 3 boys.
I am not shifting any blame to those children who are now adults. No blame at all. Right. I hope and pray for them that someday they are able to see all of the evidence in the big picture, maybe read through the things that they have maybe tried to avoid for their own safety at some mental health.
Yes.
Is what I mean.
Yes.
But yeah.
Now, Natalia believed that she actually was approximately 20 years old in 2023.
Yeah.
Okay.
She is.
Yep. But her legal age would have been 33.
Wow. That's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just actually 30 because she was born into, no. What did they say that what they put her?
1980.
It would have been 33. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. It was the 80s that they were trying to claim was her.
Basically that she was 13 years or so older than what she actually was, I think is what we mathed, perhaps.
Yeah, you shouldn't ask me about.
Yeah.
Oh, a birthday in 1989.
89.
Yeah. Okay.
I said 85.
There is like this possible drama at the end of this ID. And you know, you guys have to know that editing experts try to leave people hanging. But there is like this cliffhanger of the man's acting like they're regretting adopting Natalia. But I don't know. And like to make it look like there might possibly be another, you know, now it's going to be the man's side of the story that's released. I don't know if it will. It all depends on if it's put into production and picked up by the network and all that stuff. But, you know, they did try to leave the series on this dramatic cliffhanger. Like, oh, the man's might be regretting. Maybe she really is a sociopath.
So they've never been able to legally adopt her?
They did. They legally adopted her in 2023.
Oh, great.
Yep. They did.
Okay.
Crazy. And you know what? I don't know. Is it possible now in hindsight when Natalia is being interviewed that she's even remembering things wrong because there was so much manipulation and just absolute trash happening? Yes.
What in the hell is going on with the Barnetts to cause them to react this way after adopting a child?
I'm telling you, they got in over their head. Her disability is not an easy disability to accommodate. And I think that they wanted to be seen as the heroes with this American perfect family with all this money was going to adopt this special needs child. And it was not all the glamour and bells and whistles that they thought that it was, because their older son being gifted and being on the spectrum, and she considers that special needs, is a far cry from a very rare form of dwarfism that requires in every aspect of your care in life to be tailored to your unique disability. It's not easy. And so I truly think that they got in over their head and then they needed to spin a tale that they themselves even started to believe, okay, to get out of this so that they don't look like bad people. And it just exploded and backfired so terribly and destroyed their marriage. And
clearly, spinning the tale to justify not having to care for a child anymore is different, though, than actually following through with abandoning a child who you know to be a child and leaving them alone under the auspices that you've now legally had their age changed. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, haha, I'm free because now they're legally an adult. But what about your conscience? Knowing that you've left a child alone in an apartment.
I think that they had absolutely convinced themselves that because that she wasn't who she said she was, and that because they had it legally changed.
She was 4 when she got here.
Right. That because they had had her legally changed, they weren't doing anything wrong, Megan. They didn't care what happened to her.
We can justify a lot of things, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, that is the scary thing about the human mind, truly.
I think you need to give me a bath.
I have a bath for you. So there you go. I covered it. You guys asked me to. It was hard. And bananas all at the same time. I don't know. What do you think about this one?
I think that the TikToks and things that I've watched that gave me my general knowledge base on Natalia Grace didn't do it justice, and I kind of do want to watch this miniseries now.
Yeah. If you can stand to watch the players, because I really did struggle with Michael's parts.
Oh, I'll make a drink.
That's what I recommend. So one of our Patreons, Brian, sent this to us. And so I just had to read it for us for a brain bath today. Utah woman arrested. This happened in 2019, by the way. Apparently, a lot of crazy stuff did. Utah woman arrested for falsely reporting her husband had killed her.
Ma'am?
A 44-year-old Bluffdale woman was arrested after a fight with her husband because she reported he had shot and killed her. At 2:05 a.m. on a Tuesday, Bluffdale police were contacted by another woman who said she had received texts from the husband's cell phone number stating that he had shot his wife and didn't know what to do, according to the probable cause statement. The woman asked if he was serious, and then she received more text messages confirming that it was a joke, but that his wife was dead in their Bluffdale home. So this neighbor's like, so I called the police. Also, so the police departments go to the home and they surround it and they call for the husband to come outside. As they were attempting to contact him, the wife, who was believed to be the one that the husband shot, walked up to the officers and identified herself. According to police, the husband told them that he and his wife had been arguing. She took his cell phone and left their residence. She returned a short time later, and the argument continued. She threw his laptop on the ground, breaking it. Probably had his porn on it. Police said the wife admitted that she sent the false text messages about her own death because she wanted to see how the other woman would respond, if she would help her husband cover up the crime.
Oh my God, lady.
The wife was arrested.
Just leave.
The wife was arrested for investigation of making a false emergency report and criminal mischief.
False report of a felony.
She thinks that the neighbor and the husband are having themselves a good time on the side.
They might be.
And they might be, but she wanted to use his phone and see if that woman would rush over to his aid to help him cover up the crime. I've killed my wife. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Anyway.
And I can see why Brian thought that might vibe with us.
Oh, it did. Yeah. He was right on.
Conversations we've had before, maybe in a Patreon only episode.
Right.
And if you'd like to join Patreon because you want access to those private conversations that we don't have with the general public,
join us. The link is right there in the show notes for you.
Always.
You can also just Google search it and it will pop up.
We do. Come right up.
Yep. So, all right. Well, thanks whatever. I don't even know how to end this show, and it's been 3.5 years.
Until next time, y'all.
Keep it curious.
Keep listening.
Bye-bye.